Anybody there? Anybody hear me? Actually, that's there. And I'm muted. Turn off my camera. All right, so hopefully somebody's coming. Are any of you coming? Anybody coming? I'm mobile. Let's create a new release. Let's take a look at this bill. Pop this up. Yeah. All right, I'm just talking to myself. I'm here with the latest stuff. There we go. Let's come here. We've got the dashboard. 1.18. If I push that, that would be 1.17. Let's try that and see what happens. I'm just going to see what happens here. Who's listening? I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just going to kind of wing it here. All right, so we're deploying there. Hopefully I'll see 1.17 there. Yeah, it's still deploying. Come on, baby. Deploy. Deploy. Everybody deploy. Deploy early and deploy often. That's the key to it. Hopefully, everybody hears me just fine. I'm going to come. So this should be about done. And we're going to go. Come on. There we go. What's this look like? There we are. So alrighty then. Is anybody here? Nobody's here. Somebody's here. Who's viewing? No, I tell this. Settings. That's not what I want now. Let people mute. Chat. Hello. If anybody's there. /?. How freaking cool is that? Excellent. I'm the only one here. I'm talking to myself. All right, so what do I have here? I've got this stuff. Let's turn this off. Let's do a bunch of stuff. Let's come back to the configuration view options. Call this. So that's the basic, I think. Okay. There we are. There we are. There we are. Let's refuse that. We're pipeline there. Okay. All right. I think we're basically ready. If anybody ever shows up, we get to go. Stop for a second. Hopefully some of you will show up. That would be excellent. If you're going to show up. If you're not going to show up, then, you know, I'll just entertain myself. All right, so let's do this. Let's go here. Let's say monitor. Sorry, if anybody's listening, I'm just talking to myself and trying to send an email to myself somewhere else. There we go. All right, this and this. Let's do this. All right, yeah. I guess I could do it here. Skype business. We'll keep that up. Where's my here? I'm the only one there. So two of you. What's going on? Hi. All right. So I'm broadcasting, I think. Hopefully you guys can, somebody's here. Somebody sees something. And nobody knows what's going on. Oh, okay. So there's a few of you here. I don't know why you don't see me in the why don't I see you in the control panel? Oh, that's weird. So Q&A is disabled. Why? How do I change Q&A? Well, that's not what I wanted. Screen share. Chat. So if the chat should be up, if anybody's there, can you chat at all? Or is it not the way it works? This feature's disabled. Oh. Sometimes I just, really hate how things work here. So there's a few of you there, I see. You can see the picture, not the broadcast. Well, this is weird. It's weird if I can't communicate you. That bothers me to no end if I said start this hangout. Oh, well, I hear myself. That's funny. Well, now, all right. All right, so I'm going to assume that everybody can, I hear myself. I start my own broadcast version, and for some reason I can't hear the links, or sorry, I can't tell who's there. I can't know quite how to do the chat thing, and my apologies because I just don't really understand how Hangouts work. Oh, let me see. Let me try to add this app real quick then. So is there a Q&A thing here? Recent, no, nothing there. I don't know how to do this. All right, I'm going to just start going through DLM Dashboard a little bit, and I'll do kind of this overview thing. And I'm not sure quite how to get the Hangout thing to work. So maybe Annabelle, you or somebody else can watch the chat in the Hangout page. hopefully that works. I think, let me pull that up real quick and maybe I can see something there. That way I can at least monitor stuff. I don't know why it's not allowing me to see or hear anybody else or get your information on there. So let's pull this up and say there, close that, so I don't want to deal with that. And so Ryan doesn't see the broadcast. Annabelle sees something. All right, so TJ, Annabelle, Wayne, a few of you are here. All right. Well, I think it's broadcasting. So hopefully now you can see the DLM dashboard screen here, if this is right. And probably some of you installed it, some of you haven't. This is kind of the basics. When you first install this, it'll have a big configuration item here, which obviously I don't have because I've set this up already, but it's a fairly easy install. What this actually does is it sets up a few services on your system. And so when I come here, is I have a web server, a storage service, which communicates with my database, and then a monitoring service that actually will query the various databases that I'm watching and let me know what's going on. So if you have to start and stop it, this is the place to kind of look for things. The basic, so Annabelle says you can't see my screen, which sucks. Let's try screen share. I'm down. Let's try this. Oh, it's not allowing me. Can you see my screen? You know what I mean? My apologies for the slow start. I'm really not, I haven't done this Hangout thing before because it's kind of a mess. So hopefully I'll see something for somebody here in a minute that says, yes, we can see your screen. And yes, okay, you can see it now, cool. All right, so what I was showing before, here's the basic DLM dashboard screen. There is a configuration when you start it. The services are, there's 3 services, they're DLM dashboard services. So in your services app, you'll see there are 3 services that you can use to kind of monitor what's going on. When you do a setup here, what really happens is on your server or on a server that you're going to monitor things, it sets up this Redgate database. And what it really does is it adds a couple of tables in here that we use to track changes. And then it adds I think there's no, it's a server level trigger. It adds a server level trigger to keep track of what changes are made. And then if you go to the documentation, it makes it really easy. It's really not hard. I mean, I've set it up multiple times, so it's easy. The idea really is that DLM dashboard is kind of monitoring all database servers, so in your entire schema. And that's your tables, your views, your procedures that you want to check. It's kind of monitoring. And what we do is we group the databases that you're managing in a pipeline type situation. So the idea of a pipeline is that my code flows from development to production in some way. And typically, you know, I go to development, I go to some kind of test, some pre-production, some production type stuff. You don't have to have a whole bunch of objects here to monitor. For example, I can easily monitor just a production database if I'm curious if anybody's changing anything on the database. And I'll show you how to do that here in a second. You know, I've configured these things through, and you can see there's kind of this flow from development to integration to testing to acceptance. And I actually don't have a production instance set up here, but you know, I could. And for each one of these are all separate databases. And so this list corresponds to, on this system, I've got a development, integration, QA, and staging. And these 4 databases correspond to the databases that I'm showing here. And what it's doing is just kind of tracking the version. And so I've actually set this to 1.0. 1.18 is my, it's on this instance in this database and the version is just something I've given it. On a separate disk, and it's the same version. These two are the same version. The reason this one is amber is because it's changed without me acknowledging the changes. So if I wanted to say, hey, this is in fact a valid change, and I said I added this table here for this demo today, I can add some comment or whatever I want to say that does, and it'll turn green again. And all it's doing is saying that the code in this database matches the code in this database. My test is older. It's the last version, and my acceptance is even older than that. If I make a change to one of these databases, I'll actually see this change. For example, this change I made here, that new table hasn't been deployed here. That's the only change between 1.17 and 1.18. I'm actually going to shoot that out. If I actually done this here and deployment system out. Where's my deploy? Come on. All right, there it is. Come on. My VSTS, of course, is not very happy this morning. So there we are. Let's deploy this here. All right, we'll let that run. That's going to run in the background. It's not really a matter. It doesn't really matter for what we're talking about here. But in any case, whoa. I just killed that. There we are. I did. That'll deploy in a moment here, and we'll be able to see that. All right. Let me show you a little bit of something. So I mentioned I have these various environments here. My databases are categorized in this way because I've chosen to categorize them that. I certainly have the option to move things around if I wanted to, or move it to a different area if I had some new set of development. So let me show you how I could do that, how I could actually add some other instance here. In my configuration, you'll see I've got one server, multiple database monitoring. I could certainly add a new database on. For example, you'll see I just connect permissions. These databases have been added, these have not, so I add, this is one of, and that will in fact appear in this place, right? So now I've got this pipeline of stuff, plus I've got an uncategorized system. It's on this instance, this database, and the schema is just some schema that, well, it knows this because I added it before. I can certainly say this is just a development database, and it'll move it into that area. I could say, really, this is advent of code practice. Give my pipeline a name. It just allows me to keep track of what's going on here. All right, so now I've got two pipelines here where things are done. I could add a different instance, or yeah, different instance as well. So I have a 2016 instance here, and I think I've got the right password in there. We'll see. I do. When I add, I have this other system now, and let's say I add SQL Server Central. And if I were to go over here, you'll see now I've got some new SQL Server Central pipeline that it just decides it's added. I could say, hey, this is just production. And I'm not really monitoring anything else. I'm only monitoring production here. And then I can see it's got the schema that I've already set up right there. So if anything were to change in this database, I would get notified about it. If anything changes in this advent of code database, I'd get notified about it. And of course, here we are with my SimpleTalk pipeline. We've had a change. That system that was at 1.16, my acceptance system, actually had that deployment complete. If I run back over to my list of deployments, that screen, it completed, which means that I now see it here. Now I know that what I deployed to test is exactly what was deployed to staging in terms of the code, all the versions, because DLM Dashboard keeps track of those versions. So I can see that the code that I actually produced at some point in development that was tested in various items is what landed in this environment. And that's one of those powerful things that I think DLM Dashboard does. As a developer, that what I developed actually got moved forward, even though in development I've already surpassed that, that version of code that was 1.17. I've already moved on in development, but I can tell that at some point this is the version of code that was correctly deployed. So it allows me to just, continue on development, but still be sure that we haven't forgotten a script, we didn't misconfigure something. Any of those changes we do in a database, we're kind of tracking here. Any questions? All right, you guys are doing okay. That's good to see. So a couple other things that I want to show you that we can do here. For example, a lot of people don't like these names. You may have different names here. I can change those in my configuration. I can go to view options, and I can change these. For example, I like dev. I do like integration, but here I might say this is QA, and this is staging UAT. Maybe it's user acceptance. I could certainly change those names. And then when I come over here, you'll see that I have the appropriate names that just configure to my environment. I've showed you how to change the name to the pipeline if you want, and move things around. If I want to move these databases around, it's easy to do. I can have multiple databases at either, any of these levels. For example, if I had a branch of development, I could certainly have a separate database that I linked in to. I could have multiple development databases here, or I could have multiple production databases. Whatever works for me is allowed to do that. The amber ones tell me that something is recognized, that we're aware of what this change is, but we haven't in fact acknowledged that this change occurred. So that just alerts me to the point that something has changed that I haven't actually been notified about. I can configure email notifications if I want. I haven't done that here, but I can configure when there's an acknowledged change or whenever anything changes and send those out there. I'm really careful about this because I don't want to have constant notifications coming through of changes unless it's appropriate. I really wish I could limit this more tightly to pipelines, and if that's something that sorry, not in pipelines necessarily, but environments. For example, I care about production more than I care about other things. But it's up to you. I could certainly set up an instance of DLM Dashboard because it's free that only monitors production servers, and then I get a notification there. And maybe I have a separate instance that monitors my development pipeline, and I assume that what hits staging will just go to production. Really, we've tried to make it flexible for you. The other change that I can acknowledge here is when something changes unexpectedly. For example, I'm connected here. This is the change I made earlier today. I'm going to continue development and alter this table here. And when I look at this in terms of version control, oops, let's get the right database. This is a bad comment, please don't do this. I can commit this change. It doesn't really matter whether I've committed this change or not. But as soon as that change is made, I've drifted to an unrecognized schema here. And what that means is DLM Dashboard has no idea what this is. When I click through, what I do is I see that there was one table change made by this account. Right, this is my server and my name here. This is the old version. We're in a new schema here. I see the standard version control type stuff that tells me what's going on. We capture some of the metadata about who made the change and when. So I could do that. Now I can name this in this way. Some of our DLM automation tools and things can feed back through to DLM Dashboard a version number from a build. For example, I haven't configured it, but I could certainly have my build system here feeding this build number through. Right now, you see it's incremental. I'm at 182 builds. So Annabelle, I've been doing a lot of work here, 182 builds here, but it could feed through there. There's a variety of ways that this kind of works, but what we're really doing here is we're allowing me to just keep track. So now that you know, my dev system is at 1.19, my integration system, which comes out of my CI server and build server, is 1.18, 1.17, and 1.17. So I'm kind of tracking code. Now you'll notice I didn't push that yet. Let's actually push that, and then let's add another column here, just because we can. We'll change things again. Now this time I haven't. I committed this, so this is just a change made to the database. When I come back over here, what we'll see is now this is drifted to an unrecognized schema. DLM Dashboard is polling, that monitoring service is polling periodically to figure out what's going on. When my build completes, which is running now, this will change to 1.19, which was this version. And I still have these other ones that are older. And what I want to do is I'm actually going to skip a version, and I'll deploy this thing through so that we can see the changes there. Let me pop over here. Any questions? Nobody If you got questions, post them in this little, I have a question area and say, this is what I'd like to see. So this is unrecognized. I'm going to call this 1.2. Well, let's leave it alone for now. I'm actually going to make another change here. Let's go back here and let's say, proc. I'm just going to do a few things here so that we can see some different things. And let's do another one, my proc 2. I've got a few changes that I've made here. When we come over here, you'll see there's multiple changes. SQL source control sees I've got 3 changes here. Multiple ones have been made. DLM Dashboard notices those as well. Once I look through here, we'll see I've got new changes, 2 procedures and 1 table. And if I continue to make changes in development, as many of us do, I'll see lots of changes listed here. Right? This is 947, 947. This is at 946. So I can kind of keep track of this over time. As I deploy those changes, I'll see them march through here. And every time I acknowledge these, I can do this. I will say, typically, I don't want to track development systems here because they change way, way too often. Perhaps this just drift all the time, and then periodically I'll go, we've actually finished development, so let's go ahead and acknowledge that that's a real change. And then this version of that actually may control that. And let me just send some of those things through so that we'll see them happen. That'll address my system ever so slightly here. And then I'm going to actually create a release. Does that want to do that? Oh, I'm on the right one. Okay. Here we go. Thank you. We'll run those. So they'll just start moving in the background. And we'll should start to see his code marching through here as those deployments go through. Right now, a build is running, and when the build is done, the release will start as well. And so that will be moving code. Now I have this all automated. I'm sure all of you realize that I try to preach the DLM thing, the push thing, the automated thing, but you could do this thing manually too. So that's kind of the development pipeline side. What about things like production? Like I've got this here with just this production database. What if I want to just watch this and see what happens? Well, if I change something in this database, for example, that's that other instance, right? That's good. Let's come up here and change something. So let's say, what tables do I have in here? I have very little in here actually. So let's do a create index, my index on, nice new simple index. I created an index on this table. This is my production database here that I've marked as production in DLM Dashboard. And that's, of course, an arbitrary designation. I've just said this database on this instance is production. What will happen is we'll actually track that. And we'll notice that there's been a change there and that things have actually changed and been altered. And then it's up to us to decide, hey, was that okay or not? So if I get an email or I look at this and I see drift, I can then say, all right, well, what happened? In fact, what happened was somebody added this other non-clustered index. So if that's inappropriate, now I'm aware that it's a problem. If it's something I actually do want to add, I can certainly grab this code and feed it back to my development system. And I can certainly say, this is version 1.5, hotfix, whatever I want to call it. Hotfix, I guess, technically what I'd want to do is do something like this so that I'm aware of what's going on. And, index to support queries or something. And I can keep track of that. And then not only do I have this new version of code that I've tracked and I know what happened from an auditing perspective, I also have the ability to grab that and then feed it back into my development system and say, hey, add this in. one thing I wish I'd had for this years ago, or had this years ago, is that this allows me with third-party applications to see exactly what changed. So if I were to apply a patch to a staging environment, a copy of production, I could see what objects actually changed, and then I could decide whether or not there's something in production I need to be worried about, or something I have to keep track of. This really makes it nice and easy for you to summarize what's happening. There's nothing magic about what's happening. This is, a simple DDL trigger that's grabbing stuff, but it's the kind of thing that it's happening automatically for you, so you don't have to worry about it. If I go back to this other pipeline, we can see that I've got changes going through. They've been deployed. My release has been deployed to one environment, and if I were to actually deploy this to the second environment, that would go forward. Let's deploy that. And then I could certainly build another release that says, let me take this version 1.2 and deploy it through. All right, any questions? No questions. I'm doing a great job, or you guys aren't paying attention. TJ is probably sipping root beer, not ignoring me, but that's okay. What else do I want to show you? Okay, filtering. Filtering is one of those cool things that allows you to determine which things I don't care about, or I do care about. Now, filters are SQL source control filters, the same thing you do in SQL source control. So, you can download a file or set one up, click here to do this. I've actually built a file already that says no users. And if I were to open that in SQL Compare, what you would see, well, I could just open it, I think. All it's got is just the user box unchecked. And this is exactly how I created it. No matter what I pick here, right? Because I just want to do this. I don't really care about updates now. Come on, compare. I think I'm stressing things too much. Is this running? No, that's done. Okay, cool. Come on. This is not DLM Dashboard or really SQL Compare. I think it's my machine that's just kind of flipped out. In any case, let me just let this done. I'll apply this filter, and now you'll notice there's a filter on this pipeline that's listed there, and I see which filter that I've actually applied here. Okay, and in fact, because I've added a filter, that filter change has been noted here because we want to know that we've actually changed the way that we look at the pipeline. And you can see, just as just the XML file from SQL Compare. If SQL Compare wakes up, I don't want to do that. Let's just do. It doesn't really matter. I think that was the problem. The database was gone. When it compares those, we'll see the thing. But in terms of what's going on, right? I've just done this. So I think this was 1.2 plus filter. And so you'll notice that integration automatically picks that up because it knows that the only thing that changed was that filter. That was actually, in fact, correct. Down here, these are unrecognized because this was 1.7. We had never deployed anything further. 1.17 with a filter is unrecognized. So I'd have to come in here and actually say 1.17 plus filter, with filter, the thing that's out there. It just has to know. And of course, when we compare the version of tables, views, stored procedures, and filters with the next environment, they're the same. So I can see those. Here's my SQL Compare file. Excellent. Just it's not like compare. Oh, that's not a real database. That's sorry. This should be really easy to compare. Huh? I know most of you compare. I don't need to belabor the point here. The right side, because it's not relevant, is I came here and I said, all right, no users. And then I said, just save this as no users. Okay. You can do whatever you want. I mean, typically things like keys, security constructs, triggers, these aren't things you're going to want to, you may or may not care about them being captured in your various environments, but it's up to you. You can just do whatever you want. Once you do this, your filters actually exist in default documents, SQL Compare filters. This is where they exist. So you can go to this path and just find all your filters and just upload it here. And for now on, I've got this filter. So now if I were to make a change to a user, for example, so I know because I did this yesterday, create user for login. What account can I use? Let's try do that one. There we go. So I've created a user. That's actually obviously tracked as a create user thing. Let's do one more change just so we know. There's a well, actually, I won't do another change there. It doesn't matter if you want to do it. You can add filters to SQL source control as well if you don't care about users and things like that. But this shouldn't affect my DLM dashboard. So I shouldn't actually see a change here in this DLM dashboard because I have a filter applied. Right? I can download this file to any other machine if I want to check what it is and load it into SQL Compare, SQL Source Control, or just look at the XML, whatever I want to do. I can certainly remove it if I'd like to do that as well. Typically, this should have picked up by now, but it hasn't picked up a change there. So it hasn't, noticed the change there. Let's see if push that out. It's not going to matter. It's not going to show up in the integration environment either because my build should be running now, and it is. There's my build. We'll see that doesn't work. But let's create another table. So DLM demo 2. My favorite table in the world. Hit this, push this. Just so I can get into that second environment. We have drifted here now, right? That was quickly, but all I see is table 1, right? Why are some changes not there? Well, certain things are ignored, but certainly filters, you could ignore changes. And so it's detected my table, but my user view is not there. All right, it's not there. Well, let's one. We won't care about the filter anymore. We'll see it applied over here as well in a moment. What happen is I'll get the same type of drift change again because now I've removed the filter, and I want to acknowledge that there's potentially different objects that are going to show up, and I'll see there. All right, any questions? TJ's, thank you very much, TJ. Wish I could hear you talking. I'm sure you have wonderful things to say. Eventually, I'll figure out this Google Hangout thing, and it'll work better. What else do I want to show you? This is going to change in a minute. We'll do that. There's filters. Anything else that you guys want to see? We covered notifications. You can keep adding servers. The limit is 40 databases until you enable notifications. Then you go 50. Since this is free, you could have multiple instances of this running on different machines. I believe it's only one instance per physical Windows host or logical Windows host. But it's 40 or 50 databases that I can continue to add across however many instances I care about. My options, I can change this. Users. So by default, there's just a password to get into DLM Dashboard. But what I can do is set permission levels to people, and then certainly we do want feedback from you. There's 4 levels of feedback. If I enable permissions, you'll see that I have different users here. It's just kind of new stuff. Acknowledge means I can go ahead and click things, and as well as rename the schemas, pipelines. Configure is adding filters and some of that stuff. And administrator just really gives you security on top of that. If I were to send one of these URLs to somebody and they didn't have permissions because I'd enabled permissions, they'd get the option to create an email and send that to the administrator, who would then come to a page that kind of would allow them to easily add this person as a user with whatever permissions they want. Obviously, I don't work in a team most of the time right now, so I don't have permissions enabled, but this seems to work pretty well. Right? It uses AD to do this. If it doesn't work for you, please let us know. I mean, there are some things I'd like to have changed here, and so if some of you find that this is useful and it's helpful, then please submit changes, and we'll go ahead and try to get those done. servers view options, notifications we talked about. I think that's most of what there is in DLM Dashboard. You can see, again, keeping track of all this stuff. For me, when I try to talk to people about this in the places where I've used this type of functionality in the past, where I've had to write it myself or use another tool to do various things, is really ensuring that the changes made in one environment actually get sent to other environments. That's, I think, the number one problem people have. Go to deploy software, and because the script is edited or changed or manually done, or I fix something in QA, I don't always know if what I did in development actually made it to production or anywhere in between. So tracking changes is the big one. Catching drift up here in production changes. We always have to do hot fixes, DBAs, do different things. Forget to tell developers. This is a great way to find out if things in production are changing and you want to push them back to development. And the other thing is just getting an eye on what you're doing. So you'll notice when I click through here on the green one, I see here's 1.21, 1.1, or sorry, 1.2 with filter, 1.2. I have all these different versions that I can look through. And I can see here's my initial baseline. There's 2 objects changed, 2 objects, 1 object, 4 objects. All these different changes that I've done. And if I wanted to go back and say, so like yesterday, I bundled up a bunch of things. Well, what happened? Well, I removed a filter, right? I went from 1.14 with a filter to no filter. I actually also had some development that I was doing at the same time. So I added a user, sorry, I removed a user. I changed the schema, actually added another table here as well. All of that stuff was kind of happening, and I added a table and a trigger here as well. And so I can kind of go through and see what has happened in different versions. And so if you limit the number of times that you version development, then you have a good idea of what all the changes are that might be bundled into a particular release. Like if this was actually a release, I could say, well, I know I had these 4 objects changed, and then plus I had the filter and the user there as well. If I had a hot fix, I could say, well, I know only 1 object changed or 2 objects changed for those particular sets of deployment. So that's valuable. I don't know what else really. It's free, so I mean, it's one of those things that I think it's it's not anything any of you couldn't write, right? All of you could set up a table and DDL triggers and kind of keep track of this stuff. DLM Dashboard, though, makes it really, really simple and easy, and it starts to also help show you the value of building automation, because you'll see how often you change things in different environments and you don't do it correctly in the next environment, or you'll see how often you hotfix and those changes don't go back to development or something like that. So, like Annabelle says, right, we're looking for you to try this, test it, tell other people about it, certainly give us feedback, but, kind of spread the word, because I think there's really a lot of value in this really simple tool because it's free, because it doesn't cost anything. If this was a $1,000 tool, I think I might question whether it's valuable for your environment, but certainly at free, I think it's something you should give it a try. So, 35 minutes kind of in. Hopefully, I've given you a good idea and you've seen some things. I apologize that I don't see your questions and answers here because, well, mainly because I'm an idiot of some sort. I don't know how to do Q&A. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. I'm happy to do this again. I'm happy to set this up rather than the Hangout thing, which we just wanted to try. I'm happy to set this up as a real webinar if you want, and take questions back and forth, in an audio discussion rather than just chat. Or I will endeavor to put together some presentation as well that you can perhaps give to, your user groups or friends, or, lunchtime sessions at SQL Saturdays. We'd love to help get the word out. And if you're willing to do that, I think work with Annabelle and the Fork team to get the information out. If there's something I haven't covered, don't send me an email. I know all of you have my email. Please send an email to Annabelle so she can keep track of this, and I will endeavor to respond, or Grant will respond, and we'll get information out there. So if there's no other questions, I'll give you a couple minutes. We'll knock off, and you guys can go on about your day. If there are questions, type them in. Hopefully I'll see some of you here in the future. I'll be at San Antonio in a few weeks, a week and a half. If any of you are going, I'll I'll be in the UK. I'll be in Orlando. I'll be at VS Live in DC and Orlando. Past Summit, the MVP. I have something else in there that I'm forgetting, but anyway, I'd love to come back to Utah. TJ, tell Annabelle you want me to come to Utah. Wayne, I'd love to come back to Richmond. You have to beg Annabelle to get me out there. I don't know where you are, Paula. I don't know where you are either, but anyways. All right, no questions. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to sign off. Thanks a lot for attending. If you've got questions, drop them on the forward list on the Google Groups, and we'll get back to you, or contact Annabelle. Thanks a lot. You guys have a great day, and I will hopefully see some of you soon. Bye-bye.